And welcome back to the Warsaw Sports Marketing Podcast. My name is Luke Knopsinger. I'm a second-year Warsaw MBA student, and today I'm joined by our guest, Jewell, who is the Director of Sports Sales and Development at Travel Lane County, specifically Eugene, Cascades, and Coast Sports Commission. Thank you for joining us today, Joey, and we're really excited to have you here and especially touch on this part of the industry. And so if you don't mind, we would like to start off maybe with a little bit about your background and a little about what you do here at Travel Lane County.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luke, for having me out here and being able to talk to everybody today. So my background is obviously sports. Obviously, we wouldn't all be here or listening to this if it weren't. I got my undergraduate degree at the University of Texas, sport management. I also got my graduate degree at the University of Georgia for sport administration and policy. During my time at both of those institutions, I did multiple internships from being a student SID with the University of Texas Athletics Department. I worked at the natatoriums, so were all of the Olympians with Eddie Reese, Aaron Pearsall, Neil Walker, and all those guys, where they trained. I worked there part-time as a student and helped run all of the swim meets, so the international swim meets, the national swim meets, and the collegiate ones. We had a hand setting up and putting together those. And then at Georgia, just staying, again, within the sports fields for whatever part-time work I could do, gaining experience. Outside of that in college, I bounced around quite a bit, as most students do right afterwards, trying to find that first job with benefits, which is obviously the most important thing for us. And I worked from minor league D teams for the Dallas Mavericks. I did part-time special events for hotels, anything and everything I could do to stay within the sports tourism industry and really just sports in general. Knowing full well that the more experience I could possibly gain within the field was going to translate to whatever I decided to do later. Eventually I did get that opportunity, and I spent 2.5 years working for the International Bowling Campus, which is the national governing body for the sport of bowling, which, yes, we do have one of those. I get people asking me that a lot, wide eyes whenever I say that. And I did sales with them. So I traveled the country going to bowling centers, and I would sit down with owners, general managers, youth directors, and I would advise them on the best ways to get kids joining the sport again. So we were really doing a grassroots level marketing campaign to get kids who weren't bowlers to start joining leagues, which, again, a lot of people don't even know that bowling has leagues and it can be really competitive with scholarship money and everything. So I did that for, like I said, those 2.5 years. I did an internship in Houston for the Harris County Houston Sport Authority, and just knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I just kept my eyes open the entire time, and an opportunity came up out here in beautiful Eugene, and I jumped all on it, and luckily they gave me the job, and I packed everything up and I moved, and I haven't looked back since.
Awesome. I remember when I was in grade school, we used to do PE classes at the bowling alley, and so was that program part of what you were selling when you were going around to bowling alleys?
It wasn't necessarily a program, but it was ideas. So we had programs that dealt majority-wise with youth, so anything under the age of 18. So high school, middle school, elementary school, curriculum programs, new styles and new ways of playing the game and recreating it to fit more like your Little League Baseball model, which for anybody who's done bowling before, it can be very individual based, but we tried to turn it into a team based model to catch everybody else, like more mainstream I feel to it. And so if those things didn't work, or if we had bowling centers that just weren't feeling it at that time, we would suggest other opportunities for them, like getting involved in the local college if there was one nearby, and trying to get those classes set up and college nights and those types of things, just to help business in general. So no, not a specific program, but yes, definitely an idea that we flooded out there quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so was there like a key takeaway you took from that kind of salesman type experience for the bowling leagues that you were able to then bring to your position now with Travel Lane County?
Absolutely. The funny thing is right outside or even not even outside of school, but when I was in my undergrad, I knew right off the bat I could do and would be interested in just about any job in the sports field, but I knew that the very last thing I ever wanted to do was ticket sales. And I spent my entire college career basically saying, I'm not going to go to sales, I'm not going to go to sales, and I explored every avenue outside of it. And then what happens? The very first job you get is in sales.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of hit the ground running and pick up really fast. And all of my skills weren't in sales at that point. So I wasn't comfortable walking into a business, not knowing anybody, and just sitting down and having a conversation with someone one-on-one and being an expert in the field, but also trying not to talk down to somebody at the same time, and using little tips and tools here and there that relationship building was the number one key to it. Another fun thing was being able to plant an idea inside of someone else and formulating it in a way to where they thought it was their idea. And so those things are hugely beneficial to what I do now with the Eugene Cascades and Coast Sports Commission. Again, I think the very most important one of all of them is the relationship building piece of it, though. It's no matter what sales sector you're in, if you don't have a good relationship in today's industry, it's really tough to make that sale. And so making sure that you're networking and that you're being outgoing and you don't have a problem talking to people, and also being very open and friendly with everybody is huge to what we try to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're at Eugene, Cascade, and Coast Commission, Sports Commission. So what this commission does is it drives tourism and economic value for the Eugene and Linn County through sporting events. So can you talk a little bit about kind of your day-to-day and bigger picture, what it is, this commission, how it's set up, and how you guys operate?
Of course. I'll kind of start off with the overall viewpoint of what it is we do. I know a lot of people aren't familiar with sports commissions as a whole. So, like you said, we market our destination through sports. And most of the time that happens through sports events for us. So if you think about a youth volleyball tournament, you've got a couple, let's say 100 teams that are coming in for that. Well, let's say 80% of those teams are from out of the area. So those teams are going to travel in specifically for this tournament. They're going to stay at hotel rooms, pay the hotel room tax. So if you've ever booked a hotel room before, you realize that there's a pretty high tax associated with it. When you see that extra $15 added on top of your bill, that's what that's for.
Especially here in Oregon, where we don't have sales tax, so they have to find a way to raise taxes some other way.
Correct. So it's nice for us that we as locals don't have to pay the sales tax, which is great. So one of the ways that we do to raise that money is we tax those that are from out of town so that we don't have to pay into that. We'll tax those who don't live here to pay for our stuff here. It's a grand idea. And you'll see that in just about every city and county across the country, is they'd rather tax those who don't live here for all the stuff than tax the locals. It goes over very well locally. So that's the concept. So renting a car, same thing for the most part. Shopping, eating, dining. Even if there's no sales tax, that money is still introduced into the local economy as new money. And that new money will trickle down to part-time staff, full-time staff, ownership. And as long as it's a local business, it stays within our local community. And it gets recirculated through all sorts of levels, as let's say it's your part-time staffer now gets their paycheck as a result, or it's wait staff, and they get their tips from it, and they turn around and they go buy something in another local store. So it's adding new money in there. And the good thing is about tourism is that once the event's over, everybody leaves and they don't stay. Of course, we want them to come back, obviously, and we love having them here because it is a huge piece of what we do. So that's kind of the nice thing about it.
Yeah, and there's a whole nother element to it where it brings morale to the city to have all these types of sporting events come in. They don't have to travel to, participate in the youth softball tournament, or even if at a bigger level when you can bring in college teams or even professional teams to do exhibition games. They can stay here in their hometown and get this kind of world-class entertainment value right Correct. Here in Eugene or anywhere else in the country with sports commissions.
Yeah. And that's what I do. So my job specifically is to go out there, whether it's globally or nationally, and find those sports events and find those planners and sell them Lane County. So everything from Florence to Eugene, Springfield to Oak Ridge, Cottage Grove, Junction City, everywhere in between. Each community has their own sports facilities. They have their own resources, lakes, rivers, trail runs that they can offer as a venue, as well as local businesses, whether it's print shops, t-shirts, signage, food vendors, caterers, anything along those lines. And we try to use all of those and package it in a way that we can to sell an experience. And I think you've probably talked about this on a lot of other podcasts, is especially when you're dealing with events, what kind of experience are we offering for the athletes, the spectators, the registrators? And so for a planner, obviously the first thing they look for is price. Can they operate in the black when they're taking their event anywhere? But the next thing after that is this an event that's going to attract people to come to my event? Because I may have a certain core group of people who come with me, which is great, but I also want to grow that. So I want new people to come in here. So I go out there and I pitch the best that we have to offer. I pitch, obviously, the greenery, the scenery, the weather that we have here, which is amazing over the summer months, all of the local food that we have, the breweries, especially if it's an adult event, not a youth event, and everything great that this state and our area has to offer to entice them to come and bring their event here. And so that's the first key point, whether it's bid proposals or it's just a conversation over lunch or coffee to kind of, again, point that idea out to them and see if they're interested in it and have them run with it. The other side of what I do is the development side of it. So not only are we focused outwardly, but we're also focused very inwardly. So we do a lot for our local sports events as well. They a lot of times don't have the same budgets as national and global events do, but they're just as important for us. For instance, we have the Emerald Team Challenge, which is coming up, which is a huge youth gymnastics event that's coming. And we're going to have anywhere between 300 and 500 kids and family members coming down for this. So it's a huge event. It comes pretty close to selling out the entire Eugene Springfield Metroplex. And whether it's sponsorship dollars, whether it's helping them save money on food vendors by having a food cart or a caterer out there, or the PA system to help them set up, or just finding them another venue. We can help them in so many different avenues. I mean, social media, marketing, press releases, trying to get local coverage, regional coverage even on all of that, are all things that are hugely important to the event planner and the long-term success and the health of the event as it is. And so we offer a lot of different things. So there's a lot of sales that goes into it, but there's also a lot of, for our current position, what we have here, a lot of event planning and support at the same time, which is a little bit of a rarity within the sports commission world.
Yeah, very cool. So if I understand this right, some of that development kind of goes into helping the event maybe find a local sponsor, so being that liaison between local businesses who might be interested in sponsoring the event based off the demographics that the event's bringing to the area, all the way from helping them work with the facility manager and from promotional standpoint in the marketing in the area, maybe work with the press coverage, local newspapers, television crew, and kind of help support all the aspects that go into the event, not just, hey, come to Eugene because we have, beautiful, great nature, great people, a great culture.
Which we do, by the way. But yeah. But no, you're right. So to kind of give an example, we had the PBR here last October, so the Professional Bull Riders Association. And they do a good job of running their own show and their event. And so they did it at Matt Knight Arena. And really, they came and just talked to us and say, hey, we just want some help with local media push. We'll give you the press release. You have the contacts. Would you mind handing this out for us? And so we said, no problem. We took care of that and we blasted it out to every media source that we had. And then we also helped them set up banners. So I don't know for anybody who's listening right now, if you ever notice when there's a big event going on in your city or your town, the street lights and the lampposts near downtown, you'll notice that there's a lot of banners, whether it's holiday banners or something else. But those are promotional tools. And so we went out there and we researched for the PBR how to actually get those banners set up, who to contact, what they would cost, and then they would send us the specs and we would get that set up for them. So that's really all we did for them. And so some of them don't need a whole lot from us. Others, like you said, we go out and we'll help them put together a sponsorship deck, and we'll advise them on, what kind of demographic is their attendee, what do they feel like, what's important to them, and then we put that into a piece there and we'll blast it out to our members to see if any of the businesses want to be a part of that, because they may see that as an opportunity to hit a specific target market that they may not currently be in or that they're currently trying to hit to help their business. We're a little different from other sports commissions in that aspect, because not all of them are member based, which we are. So we have local businesses who pay a membership fee to be part of us on an annual basis. And so let's say Spartan Race Series, just as an example, wanted to come to us and said, "Hey Joey, we really need, we've got all these t-shirts that we need to be printing." In their case, they've got national printers, so they don't really need it in that case. But for this, they may say, "We need someone who can print, 1,000 t-shirts for us, and we want to do it locally. How can we do that? Help us find somebody." We would go out, because we have a couple different members who do that, and we would blast the information out to them and say, "Here's an event that's coming in. They're looking for a vendor to do this. Send us your proposals." And they may come back with different prices, different offers. They can be a little creative. And then if any of them say yes, we forward that along to the event planner and we let them do the negotiations and the discussions to plan everything out. If they don't, and there is no interest in that, then we open it up to the entire community. So if we do have those other businesses that aren't members, they'll get the second crack at it. So we still try to support in whatever ways we can, but we give the members the first opportunity to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. Other sports commissions that aren't membership based, they just blast that out there to everybody within the community who might be offering those services, just so that we can provide that for the event planner. A really good way to look at us is that middleman and that liaison for an out-of-town planner who needs to plan an event here and who may never have been here before. They don't know who to reach out to within the local government, whether it's for road closures, permitting processes, which caterers are good, which food trucks to take out. And we can provide all of that information for them and for their athletes and their attendees. So even if they're staying at a hotel, we can have a booth set up in there that's got places to eat, things to do during your downtime when you're not at the gym. Mm-hmm. If you want to do a team building exercise somewhere, we can send you to another one of our local communities or another area and give you some of that downtime and fun time so you can explore what our area has to offer outside of the event. So there are a lot of different things that we can do to kind of help support.
Cool. So what would be one of the more challenging events that you've brought in from a resource standpoint, having to be more creative to help support that mm-hmm. event?
Well, it's definitely the more local ones.
Okay.
It's funny, you would think that the Olympic trials for track and field would be one,
yeah,
or the
absolutely.
NCAA national championships for track and field, because they're massive events. 2021, we're getting the world championships for track and field, and it's going to be the first time ever that it's being hosted within the United States. And that's going to be a statewide effort. That's not even just Lane County. And so you can easily look at that as potentially being the most difficult thing from a resource standpoint. However, with Tracktown USA, the organization that really spearheads a lot of those events, with the University of Oregon, with the community really stepping up, it's not as difficult as you would think. Whereas when we have our smaller events, our local ones that we try to help develop, they don't have almost any resources whatsoever. All of their volunteers come from their club, so they are maxed out by the time the end of the event is over, and they don't want to do another one. So they don't have a huge pool of volunteer help. They don't have a huge budget for marketing. They don't have a huge budget for the experience of the event as well, or the facility. So a lot of times they take what's most economical, and then we find ways to find them the best deals on the vendors that we can help them find, or we come up, like you said, creatively, try to find ways to do partnerships and sponsorships, whether it's through in-kind donation or cash, or We're able to hook them up with someone within the company, or sorry, not the company, the county, who just happens to know someone who happens to know someone who can provide a resource for them at close to nothing because they love what they're doing. One of the things that we've found is really helpful is definitely pairing the event with a cause. Whether it's the American Cancer Society, your local vet groups, when you do those things, it becomes more than just the sporting event itself. There's now an added piece to it, a significance almost to it, to those people who don't normally follow your event. So it might be that extra hook to get them involved. Well, that's also your extra hook to get a sponsor involved. Let's say we have, Peace Health, let's just use them as a random example here, which is one of the healthcare providers within the area. They might be really involved in veteran services and giving back to the community in that way. So if we had a softball tournament that was coming up, an adult men's softball tournament, let's just say that, and a portion of their proceeds were all going to go back towards the veterans benefit group, or all the sales from food and beverage was going to be on that, or they were going to do raffles or 50-50 pieces. That might get an organization like Peace Health interested in sponsoring the event from a cash standpoint. So there's a lot of different ways you can get creative to do that. It's just being able to think outside the box and then really having the ability to put in the time and effort to follow through with a lot of that as well. And so those are some of the things that we bring as well. So if an event planner just hasn't thought of that before, or they don't really know where to go, we can suggest a lot of those really creative and unique ideas to help them get the resources that they need to put on an event that, to the level that they want it to be put on.
Yeah, I imagine that it takes a lot of knowledge of the local culture and what's important to Lane County from a CSR point, whether it's, like you mentioned earlier, sustainability is a very big issue here in Eugene, in the surrounding county. And so kind of matching up kind of that cause base for the event to what is already kind of has a lot of traction here in the county can really help bring out locals to whether it's a local event or to an outside event coming in to Lane County for the first time, and kind of really help pair the two very well. I could see how that's a very big
Yes, of course. And that's something we look for when we're going out and we're prospecting for new event planners and new events. We look at how they're run, what kind of impact they have, and does it fit with the message of the community? And then does it fit with our marketing platform too? I mean, does it make sense for us to bring in a whole bunch of events just to have them here and to dump all that new money into the economy when it doesn't fit with our marketing plan and it doesn't benefit our locals? That's one line of thinking to do it. Our line of thinking is we don't want to bring in an event that isn't good for the local community, even if it does just bring in a whole lot of extra cash and revenue for the county. It's got to fit with the culture of who we are here and what our marketing plan is and the types of events and what we want to be known as. There's very much a PR component with this as well. If there's a bad event in town, we get associated with that because you think about it, there's a lot of people who are traveling in for this event who aren't from here. And if their experience is poor from that event, for whatever reason, they're going to associate that experience with us as a community, right or wrong. So when they go home and they talk about, how was your trip out to, let's say, Eugene, Oregon? They may say, it was terrible. The event was poorly run. We didn't realize that they were just going to be dumping the trash everywhere. Those types of things we don't want to have, because then it looks bad on us. So we do everything we can to work with event planners across the community. I mean, we've got the Council for Sustainable Sport, City of Eugene, Willamette Lane, which is Springfield's local government and Parks and Rec area. We will do everything we can to offer those support and those help so that we can fit everyone in line with what we're doing so that we can make that experience the best possible one.
Yeah, and along that lines, you guys just actually held a conference to help event planners kind of educate them a little bit more on the nuances of how to take advantage of some of these resources and out-of-the-box thinking and sponsorship. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that conference went?
Absolutely. So this was our first annual Oregon Sports Summit, which we just ran this past week, which was an idea that came from my boss, Janice Ross, where we really wanted to provide a way to help, again, provide resources and education to all of our local event planners to help them overcome some of the barriers that they might be experiencing. We have a wealth of sports planners within our area that have a lot of knowledge in a lot of different areas. And so we thought, well, what better way to get everyone together for networking, to sharing ideas, and to see what we can come away with to really benefit their events. Travel Oregon, which is our state destination marketing organization, got wind of it, was really excited about it, and asked if we would be open to opening it up to the entire state, not just Lane County. Which was really kind of a huge indictment of what they thought about what we were doing. We really feel like we were being leaders within the industry for this because, to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything else like it out there. And the event was a huge success. We had seminars on volunteer management and acquisition, sponsorships, how to get your event in local media, whether it's TV, radio, social media best practices for promoting your event, getting fan engagement, getting attendee and athlete engagement. Sustainable sports was part of one of them. And then we had Vin Lanana, who is, president Tracktown USA, now part of the USA Track and Field. I believe he's the president now of USA Track and Field as well, which is pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. He's he makes things go around here for track and field. Very, very important and amazing gentleman. He was our keynote speaker at the lunch and talked about the 2021 World Championships and all the NCAA championships that we host here and all the other track events, and really showed how much they appreciated the community support and how important the community support was for those events and just what the overall benefit was. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that and looked at it. And we had a spread of people from obviously all corners of Oregon. We had a few people from Northern California show up. A few people from Washington came down for it. And we had not just USA Track and Field, for instance. We didn't have just Oregon State high school sports associations. We did have some of the larger events that came in the area for it, but we also had the really small ones show up too, and the middle tier ones as well. And so it was really neat to be able to have someone who, let's say, runs the local Ultimate Frisbee group, who puts on a tournament every year that gets teams from all over the west of the United States, sitting next to someone who is, let's say, Eugene sneaker hockey, which is, roller hockey but without the skates, trying to put on their very first tournament and trying to just soak in everything they can for it. Having them be able to sit side by side, whether it's at the luncheon or at the seminars or during the small breaks in between, and really talk about how one group does their event and how another one does theirs, or how they might be trying to find ideas to do those things, was really special and spectacular. And we got a few events out of it too. There were a couple planners who got together and said, we've always wanted to do this type of event, but we could never figure out how to do it, because of X, Y, or Z. And another planner went up to him and said, this is how we took care of that on our end. And so we broke down barriers for our sports planners across the board. And it came away very well. It was really, really successful. We had around 140 sports planners. Sports commissions from across the state showed up for it as well. Local and state government officials came down to see, marketing organizations, sports and tourism from across the state. It was a huge success across the board, and we're really excited to push it again next year, add a few more content pieces to it, and see how we can take it to the next level.
You think you would be willing to expand it outside of Oregon as well, and have people from neighboring states or across the country possibly? Potentially.
Okay. It is. I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse here too much right now. I know my boss is probably cringing as she listens to this. It is the Oregon Sports Summit, okay. And I think that's where our focus is obviously right now. Mm-hmm. We just did the first year. We'll take a look at it in the second year. We have visions and aspirations and goals to how we want to take this. But we already have opened it up, to a certain degree, when we really think about it, because we had people from California and Washington come in. I think the sky's the limit with what we could do. I don't know if we would ever bill it outside of Oregon Sports Summit or turn it into anything larger, just because from a staff standpoint, that's we're limited in certain capacities too. And so we would obviously need to grow and spend a lot more time and effort putting something like this on if we were to make it a national convention or conference at some point. And there's plenty of those already out there. So I'm pretty sure ours would stay that kind of focus just regionally, but we would never turn someone away from a neighboring state or someone from across the country if they heard about what we were doing and wanted to be a part of it. We would obviously always welcome anybody, because it's sharing of information. And anytime you can do that, regardless of what industry you're in or kind of what your job is, that's always a positive thing in our opinion.
Yeah, and it's showcasing not only the state and the county, but also being an industry leader in this field, and saying not only is Oregon a great place to have your event, but we are also the resource experts for you to help you host the best event possible. So
correct. So if anybody's listening and they want to attend next year, feel free to fly on in or drive in, stay at one of our amazing hotels, eat at some of our great restaurants. We can give you a huge list to try out there, and come on in and we'll sell you Oregon. It doesn't necessarily have to be Lane County. We can get, whether it's Medford, Portland, Bend, Corvallis, Klamath Falls, Washington County, and more from that. There's so many other amazing areas. Everybody thinks we're just this amazingly wet and green state, but you go to the other side of the Cascade mountain range and it's high desert. It's a whole nother world out there with a whole nother level of beauty and attractions and activities and things to do. So absolutely, if you just want to learn more about Oregon and then at the same time take some event planning things away from it, come on out. You're always welcome.
Awesome. Well, we are running a little bit late on time, but I can't let you go without asking one more question. As a student of the industry and knowing that there are other students and potential Warsaw students listening to this, do you have any advice for new people entering into the sports industry, maybe looking at sports coalitions as a good stepping stone and getting involved, or young professionals already in the industry, help them be more aware of what's going on?
Absolutely. One of the things that's important to me is obviously someone who was a student. I graduated 2009 with my undergraduate, 2011 with my graduate degree, and so it hasn't been too long since then. It's obviously a different world out there now than it was 20 years ago or so, where you could have your undergrad go out and then go straight into a full-time position. And one thing that I was lucky enough that my professors told me, and I know that when I started visiting other institutions, not every professor told those students this, was that you don't have to know exactly what you want to do during your undergrad or your master's for that even. I changed my mind probably a semester into my master's degree for what I really wanted to do. But try to stay within the sports field, whether it's your part-time jobs, whether it's your internships. You can't have too many of those. Right now it's experience that's going to get you the jobs, unless you just happen to know someone or someone luckily just gives you an opportunity, but you've got to network. So for me, like I said, I did public relations within the university. I worked as a lifeguard, but I did the event side of it for swimming and diving. NBA D-League, externship, unpaid. I worked 2 jobs for a lot of things, and I stuck with it. I have a lot of classmates who are now doing tech sales. They're doing a lot of other jobs that have nothing to do with sports, even though that was what their passion was and that's what they went to school for. For me, for the amount of student debt that I have, I told myself there's no way I'm switching careers given the amount of debt I have. If I'm going to go through that and I'm going to really be passionate about it, I'm going to do everything I can to get in it. And so just stay in there, fight for it, keep doing what you've got to do and gain as much experience as you possibly can the entire way through. If you do that, you'll widen your knowledge base, your perspectives on how things are run. You'll see a lot of different ideas as well. And not to say that one's worse or better than another, but it helps you form your own opinions and helps you form your own way of looking at things. And so for me, that helped me massively as I was trying to go through this, and it helped me get a job right off the bat, and ultimately it helped me get into the career industry that I always wanted to be in. I just didn't know it until a semester or two before I finished my master's degree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the advice, for coming on and sharing about yourself and about the local Trevelyan County and Eugene Cascades and Coast Sports Commission. It was great to have you on, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun today.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Joey, for that interview. And now we're going to kick it back over to Kelly, who will be interviewing a few first-year MBA students about their trip in Seattle.